You're very welcome, Jayne. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about your background and founder journey?
Sure.
Yeah.
So first of all, it's really great to be here, and I haven't seen Denise in a really long time. So when she reached out, I instantly wanted to help because I think Denise is fabulous. So it's great that she's here. But I actually haven't spoken in a really long time to a group of founders. My story will make sense why. So this is probably one of the first things I've done to kick it off, and I've kind of said no for the last year, but I really wanted to come and talk to you because when I was starting off, the conversations that really sat with me were the really honest and authentic conversations. I started in university not knowing anything. I did politics. I'm severely dyslexic. I hadn't a clue what I was doing. And there were so many reasons for me to fail. But yet talking to so many different founders over the years, particularly at the very beginning, who were similar, I suppose gave me that confidence to keep going. So I always think having really good founder-to-founder conversations really helps. I don't know it all. I am learning every day, making mistakes still every day. But if there's anything I can be open and honest about or lean into a couple of areas, we're a small group, so really happy to speak to you about your own businesses. I know a few of you are pitching as well, so really happy to help. There's this lovely saying that, women help women. Sometimes that's true, sometimes it's not true. So I really hope everybody here helps each other. Ireland's very, very small and the entrepreneur community is even smaller. And we need more women to succeed. The second time I've done a business, the promise I made myself, and I genuinely didn't think I'd go again. I said that too after having my first baby, but I'm now I just had my second baby. There you go. Is that I wasn't going to think small. I was going to think huge. I was going to really leave it all out there. And that's really what we've done. So I went from running a technology company called Tallyvest, started as a yearbook. After many pivots, it ended up as an employee analytics tool. We grew it to a team of 15. We had about 3.5 million raised in investment, very strong revenues. Really, really interesting time, highs, lows, the whole lot. We eventually exited to an Australian company called Go1, who are one of the leaders in learning technology. And I suppose our tool fitted in really lovely in terms of if you have over 1 million learning courses, our analytics tool helped users understand which one was most relevant for the user. So really, really interesting time. And then I worked with that company for a period of 6 months, which was very interesting because I had never worked for anybody else before. So lots of really interesting learning there. But I suppose now where I am is I'm running a food company. I cannot cook. My husband can definitely attest to that. I have no desire to learn how to cook. I am a huge consumer, and I'm so happy that Just Be is here as well, because I'm a huge consumer of her beautiful product. But I'm obsessed with nutrition and fitness and longevity and just trying to be the best self. Ever since becoming a mom, I've been more, I suppose, conscious of what goes into my mouth, but also my kids' mouth, and I suppose my parents, and it just kind of became part of it. But very long story. I wanted a snack. A friend of mine had a company called Bean Brownie for years, which she created the most amazing high protein snacks. We were there once a day, maybe 2 times a day. We loved her products. They closed down. I was devastated. I was pregnant and craving snacks. And again, when you're a pregnant woman, whatever you want, you need to figure out how to get it. And didn't know what I wanted to do. Knew I wanted to do something interesting that I was passionate about, which was in the space. And I just said to Sarah one day, I said, why don't I take my tech background, which was, I suppose, that scaling and the analytics piece, with your product, and let's just put it online. So we're 12 months old this month. We create high protein snacks. We have a range of protein balls, and we've just launched a collagen crumb, which is like a granola, but much nicer. And we've now sold over 200,000 protein balls. We're in Google, Apple, over 500 offices up in Dublin. We've just launched in the UK. The product's being made. We have a subscriber network. We were in the US last week in Florida talking to retailers there. Completely self-funded. I'm having a blast. I love it. It is so hard. It is heartbreaking. I've never dealt with manufacturers before. I've never dealt with retail before. So very different to the tech side of it. So I suppose what I'm very happy to talk about is investment, because I've raised it before, acquisition, we've done it before. How do you get a product to market when you've no idea about that product or that market? But also, as I said, very happy to take as many questions as I possibly can. But just again, still learning, so don't know, so don't take my word as the gospel.
Super. Jayne, there are very few women on the island that have done the growth to exit. There are few businesses in Ireland to date that have been acquired. And then obviously you stayed with the business for a period of time. Getting to that point of somebody coming and knocking the door and saying, we want to buy your business, what was your first reaction?
It doesn't happen that quickly. And I remember a founder saying to me only recently, she's like, I think I'm ready to exit. And kind of saying, it doesn't, just when you decide it actually doesn't happen, it actually is the total opposite. It's just like dating. You can't be too eager. So how we got acquired initially was we raised investment from an angel investor over in San Francisco, and he was an investor in Go1 as well. So Tom had said to me maybe just under a year before we were acquired, I think you should connect with this company, Go1. So I was going into it not really understanding, look, what's to come from this. Initially, it was making sense that we would partner with them. So as I said earlier, our technology slotted in really, really nicely to what they were doing. And I suppose I could see that they were maybe 400 people. They had like 2.5 billion of valuation. They'd taken up like 60 million investment from Microsoft. Like they were growing, but also they were still quite slow in making decisions. So they couldn't just decide, I'm going to build this. It was a really long kind of period of deciding what they wanted to do. So we kind of figured out over time that it probably made more sense for them to buy us rather than try and recreate what we were doing. So we were partnering with them, but it was taking too long. But these things never happen as planned. So the acquisition happened when I was 6 weeks post pregnancy with my first baby, Ollie. And it was really, really stressful. And I remember the acquisition conversation happening with literally as simple as their CEO, Andrew, saying, how would you feel about us buying the company? And that's literally how it happened. And it went from there within 6 weeks to conversation started to being bought.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So it was quick in the end.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. And in that journey of, growing the business and as you say, it started off in a very different guise than what it ended up in the multiple pivots or the multiple decisions. How did that journey go? Tell us a little bit about that. You started off with the yearbook and then it obviously went into a completely different direction.
I think we all suffer from this overnight success. I didn't know any better, so I didn't even realize the overnight success. I did politics. I just wanted a yearbook. It was very simple. I got a bit of, I suppose, a taste of what it was like to run a company. I wasn't afraid to knock on doors. The first door I knocked on was a guy called Ronan Harris, who at the time was the head of Google. I had no business meeting him, but I sent him a LinkedIn to say, I just happened to be in Dublin. Can I grab you for a coffee? And that conversation went from me saying I run yearbooks to him saying, did you ever think about alumni? Because in Google, we actually really like to welcome people back, or they could be a referral, or they could be a customer for all we know. So we quickly pivoted to say, okay, this could be really, really interesting. Then we got selected to go to San Francisco with Enterprise Ireland on this Select USA. I don't know, has anybody done that program? If you're in tech, would really, really recommend it. We were there for 10 days. I ended up staying for a year. We got Stanford as a customer. We got Berkeley, like other really interesting universities. And the one thing I'd really, really recommend if you're in the position to get out of Ireland when you're early. Ireland is fantastic, but it's very small. And you need to be uncomfortable. You need to be put in positions where you're meeting customers that in a way you probably don't have any business meeting, or investors that you've no business meeting if you're that early, but it will get you to think big. You have to think big. And in San Francisco, I didn't even know what a convertible loan was. I didn't even know what a valuation was. And I really am honest about that. But we were meeting investors saying, this is great. Did you think about this? Are you raising any money? And that's how a conversation happens. And I suppose I wasn't afraid either of pivoting. That was the big thing. I remember talking to, because again, the Irish are like magnets, we would have had lots of conversations with John and Patrick Collison in Stripe, and I remember them saying that they didn't even get selected to pitch in Y Combinator because their business just made no sense. So you kept hearing these stories and you're like, well, they don't have their shit together. So like, this is
Everything
great.
will be okay.
Exactly. So you kind of just have to kind of lean in and say, let's make it a part of the story. I found the university market then really kind of, it was okay, but it was taking very long to convert customers. So that's where kind of the corporate angle came into it. And then the more we, I suppose, got customers, the more I got obsessed with talking to the customer. And I think a lot of founders miss this. And I suppose it's just maybe my own opinion of it, but I think a lot of founders sometimes get more focused in on getting investment in the door rather than getting their customers in the door. And at the end of the day, if you don't have customers, you don't have a business. So any customer we had, I was obsessed with trying to ask, like, you know, what are you happy with? What aren't you happy with? What happens in the day of the life of? So we slowly started to see that the employee journey wasn't being tracked at all. And we knew that the first 30 to 90 days of a new employee joining the firm is really, really important. So we wanted to just basically take a pulse of the employee. Are they happy? And kind of just recreate what a survey is. And that's kind of how that pivot happened. So looking back, it all made sense. At the time, not so much. I think maybe I was just resilient, or I didn't know any better, that you just keep on going because you don't really have a choice.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the keeping on going and not you know, that's a big piece of the journey. Folks, I have lots more questions, but I'm going to throw it open. Oh, we've got lots. Okay, Erica, you go.
So my name is Erica, my business is Babogue, and I want to tell you that my daughter is dyslexic. So I've just sent her a picture of you and fired her on the link to your company to say this girl is dyslexic and is really successful. So thank you for sharing that.
No, not at all.
Yeah, she's 14.
Is she? Well, do you know, you should tell you the majority of successful founders, whatever, there, so many of them are dyslexic, or a really, really good friend of mine, she does really well for herself. She just found out that she's got ADHD. And like, again, we were doing a bit of research into it and like the amount of folks that have that. So it's just trying to embrace it.
Yeah.
It's nice for girls of that age to have somebody that they can see is the same as them and has been successful. So thank you for sharing that.
That's super. Pauline?
I have a question, but just to follow on from the theme, I found out I was dyslexic when I was 14. That's the best news I ever got.
Amazing. It's brilliant. It's kind of a relief because you're like, I can't think this way anyway, so you can just have to embrace it.
I realised then it was like a superpower. It was
100%.
very funny in my head. So anyway, question is, when you were starting out or starting to grow, did you have your exit in mind? Did you, like, were you taking on investment with that sort of, I want somebody to buy this company in X years, or did that just naturally happen? And then part B is, with this business, are you very consciously not taking on investment?
So the first question is, the minute you take on investment, you have to have an exit. You either have an exit or you go public. We took on investment from some angel investors and some funds. And again, in the, I suppose, we're in the, because we're all being honest and open, I wouldn't have understood that at the time. I was taking it on because this is great, and like they've promised me they're going to help me open the door here, and they're going to be the best partner, and like they're not, like that's not the reality. AwakenAngels is different. They're going to be fabulous. An angel investor versus a fund is very different as well. So we had an amazing group of angel investors that actually didn't ever put pressure on us, but they were always there if I needed to pick up the phone. They weren't putting us under pressure to exit. So if I had gone to them and said, look, Go1 have given us an offer, you get your money back and you do quite well out of it, what do you think? If I said to them, I don't want to do this, I don't feel they would have said that, you know, they wouldn't have put me under pressure. I think they would have actually supported. Same with the fund. But ultimately, the minute you take on investment, if there has to be an exit somewhere. So I just think, again, when you're raising money, really think about why you want it. Like, do you need it? There's so many different options to fund your company. And I know at times it can be scary. So I've self-funded this myself because I wanted the control at the very beginning. To answer your second question, ultimately, we will take funding because we want to get there faster. So say at the moment, we got an order in yesterday for 45,000 protein balls. My head of supplies over with our manufacturer in the UK at the moment, literally just like running around like, how do we do this apart from everything else? All these things have to be funded up front. So it's very, like it's very appealing at the moment to say, well, we just go and raise an investment to do this, but it's not the right time for us right now. We know we need to raise money when we want to go to the US because it's just going to cost us so much between advertising and everything. And I really understand then when I'm sitting in front of an investor to say, here's what I need, this is the reason why, instead of being in a desperate thing that I need them more than they need me, if that makes sense. With Talivest, that was a lesson that I learned. It's taking the right investment at the right time is really, really, really important.
Industry average from a European perspective is that if you are a non-deep tech business, that your investor is going to want to come out by between 5 and 7 years out of the business, going to want to see a return. And for a deep tech business, that's now 10 to 15. It used to be 10 to 12, but it's just moved in 2026 to 10 to 15. So they're in your business for a long time, folks. And I say this all the time, even to our investors that we're training from an AwakenAngels perspective, they need to be good and back off. We talked about it on the investor readiness session that I did with you. You don't want tax Trevor and sweating Simon sitting all over you. And, the good angels can add significant value to the journey in that, but they're all obviously looking for a return, definitely. You talk about listening to the customer and on that journey, and obviously been relentless around finding out where their pain points were and trying to solve them. Obviously, you had a vision of where things were going. How did you balance that sometimes noise from customers, right? Because they all want something and they all possibly want something different. But how did you get that sweet spot between your vision and that customer feedback?
It's impossible. It's actually really, really hard. So to give a real life example, like we have a team meeting on Friday to basically put blinkers on because we're getting distracted already with we're doing this for there and we want to do this and we have this opportunity coming at us. And sometimes it could be so overwhelming when you have got about 5 things coming at you that you actually just need to get back into the room and say, what is the goal? Are we moving towards here? Why are we here? Sometimes, we've done a few events and I'm now asking the question, like, did we actually get anything from it?
Yeah.
Did we just want to go there because it looked good on an Instagram, or did we get a customer? Was it for brand awareness? Like, why are we doing this? With Talivest, it was a little bit different. We learned the hard way, the very hard way. We had assumed customers wanted a certain feature on our platform, and it took us weeks to build. We never sat down with a customer and said, what do you think about this? We ended up losing money on it. We had to go back to the very beginning of it, and it was really difficult and a really, really hard lesson. I think where it's hard, and again, I don't envy tech companies with it, is that the minute you ask a customer for an opinion, they're always going to have one. And you have to ask the question, but you have to balance it with, is this actually what they really want? Is it nice to have, or is it a must have? I see a lot of tech founders building, but it's building for the wrong reasons. What I've started doing, which I think works really, really well, and we did it just before Christmas, is doing focus groups with customers. Everybody likes a nice glass of wine or a nice coffee, and making it a very informal piece to say, if we were to do this, what do you think? Bringing them actually on the journey. Yeah. And I think that's really underrated, is bringing it back to the human element.
Yeah. Absolutely. You talk about resilience through the journey, and obviously now going again. Lots of founders would say they'd never go again, and then, like childbirth, not that I've ever had children, but they say you forget the pain and you go again. The amount of founders I've spoken to recently are on their second journey, which is incredible. But how do you, that resilience and that resilience that you've had to have on both companies, how do you manage that when things are going wrong?
It's my job. I know what I'm good at, but I'm not good at a lot of things. But I'm very good at riling up a team and thinking positive. I think it's probably the best gift my parents could have given me, is just having optimism about, I suppose, the journey. It's hard, and it's hard being a woman. It's hard when you walk into a room and you instantly feel like, God, I'm the only person here that's a woman, and I'm going to be judged and all of that stuff. And that's kind of where you have to have a persona. And I remember, and it's funny because it's really stuck with me, but listening to an interview from Beyonce years ago, and her talking about that she has a persona which goes on stage called Sasha Fierce. And I've always kind of embodied that like the times you're feeling really awkward and you kind of know because you're closing in and it's not great, you have to just open up and say, like, I'm here, like, and I'm going to blow this away, and like, this is my job, like, and I don't care whatever everybody else says, you have to just be so focused. Like, again, like, just being sorry, Leona, to like totally like put you out, but like, I'm obsessed with her product. And even in the States, I'm like telling people about their product. I'm like, I need to get on to Leona and be like, you need to go and like shout this, because it's such a class product. And I think as women, we're naturally perfectionists. We look for like things have to be perfect. And I sometimes think like that I don't do it, and then I'm like, oh my God, I'm doing it. Like, and it's just an automatic thing that we need to be like, no, the product is amazing. So it's bringing it back. And one of our very first investors was the fabulous woman called Anne Hershey. She ran a company for years called CPL. And Anne was just kick-ass. She was amazing. And one thing she always said to me was like, when you're going through the shit and you think like, this is it, that's the end of it. Like, nobody wants this. I can't pick up the phone to this investor. My team is falling apart. My co-founders, whatever. She's like, just think in 6 months' time when you look back on that and say, can you imagine, like, if I did something different, or what did I learn from that? Or like, that makes a really great story. I thought like we were down in the dumps, that's it, but then this happened, and then I did that. And that actually really helps me sometimes when I'm like, okay, can I make this into a story?
Yeah, that optimism, I think, is needed, right? That glass half full in terms of this journey. I don't think we could do it without having that in the mix of everything.
But it's just to normalize it. Like, if you're not feeling uncomfortable, or if you're not feeling like, why isn't this going together? Like, that's what you should be feeling. That's why this isn't for everyone. And I'm sure everybody's experienced this, even, when you're expanding your team, you get the really eager team member to say, oh my God, I really want to be a part of a startup, and for all the fantastic things. And then they get the reality of it and think, actually, this isn't for me. So that's why, like, it's an amazing that you're even here, that you've taken the first step, because so many people don't even get this far. So I think sometimes we just need to take a breath and be like, we're doing okay.
Okay, absolutely, absolutely. I'm going to gingerly move into a topic that sometimes is sensitive. Obviously, you've built your business and you've had 2 children. You've obviously exiting the business after Ollie was born, and then going again. And we as women sometimes don't talk enough about kind of those life inflection points, be that having children, going through divorce, going through menopause, and trying to build a business at the same time. I'm not equating having children and menopause as the same thing, but there are there are inflection points in our lives that we are all, facing and balancing, raising young families and building a business, stepping away from the day-to-day, not been there for the pickup while the girls are here this week, or not been there for the school play, or whatever the case may be in building that business. Can you just take us through some of your thoughts around that, around those inflection points, those decisions, and growing a business, and what have you learned about making it work? I mean, we talk about having it all, but is that?
I don't think there's a perfect. I don't think there's like a perfect way. I'm envious of Paddy, my husband, that he can leave in the morning and doesn't need to think about dinner, or has Ollie got everything packed for creche? Is Vera coming for Robin? Oh, does we need to get nappies? Do we need to get this? He can just go. Like, that's it. See you at 6 o'clock. Like, women, and again, not to put everybody in the same bucket, but definitely for me and my co-founder Sarah, like anytime we travel, it's like, okay, what can go wrong? Like, okay, Sarah's husband Alan, he forgot to pick up Lynn from school, she's in 5th year. Okay, trying to do this. So your brain is just on, and both myself and Sarah, I can speak on behalf of her as well, we become exhausted by it, and we become envious of Alan and Paddy that can just go about their days. When the kids are sick, it's an automatic thing of Paddy and Alan looking at us saying, God, what are you going to do? It's not that, sure, I'll go and I'll take time off work. So it's a total balancing act. And our husbands are great. They're fantastic, but you have to be very specific about what you need them to do. There's no initiative sometimes taken, which can be hard. But it is hard, and the guilt is awful. Like, it's awful. Robin is 6 months old. I'm back at work full time, and there is days where I'm looking at myself and, God, like, is this it? Like, is she going to ever look at me the same? But I know she doesn't know what's going on. And I grew up with a mom that worked, and I absolutely adored it. There was non-negotiables, like she would be there to pick us up from school, she would be there to drop us at school, she'd be there for dinner. And I learned from that. I want my kids to see us both working, to understand that, like, it's important to work and we're passionate about our work. Ollie is along with the journey now with us. Like, he's been making protein balls, he eats protein balls, he knows the team. Similar with Paddy and what he does, but it is a trade-off. It is hard. I suppose the only thing that I have learned is that your time is not like it used to be. So the days of like, you know, doing the late nights are just, they're not there. But then maybe that wasn't the best way either. So I work from 8 till 4 every day and I absolutely, like, I love it. Like, it's the head down, it's focus. But travel is hard. So I was away in Florida for 5 days. That's very hard. I'd like to think that I can build this company with my family involved. How? I don't know. But I like to think that I can bring them on the journey. But I have such sympathy, but equally admiration for women that can do it both. And there's an amazing woman in Northern Ireland, I can't remember her name, somebody here would definitely know her. She was in the Entrepreneur of the Year, and she's an absolute amazing woman. She's got 7 kids, and she's like doing Mairead Mackle. Yeah. Like, every time I meet her, I'm like, you are phenomenal. We were at a dinner recently with Sarah Fryer, who's the CFO of OpenAI, and again, Sarah's got 3 kids, and like, talk to women who do have it and like be bold enough to be like, how did you do that? Yeah. Like Sarah McGrath, she's a partner in EY. Her husband's Michael McGrath, the TD. They've 7 kids. Like, do you know, it's so it is possible. Is it easy? No, but like you're in a startup. It's not easy anyway.
Being an entrepreneur isn't easy, right? From the beginning. Questions, folks? Any more? Yeah, go ahead, Sarah.
You kind of hinted at sorry, I'm Sarah.
Sorry.
You hinted at it at the beginning, like some women will help you, some women won't help you. Where have you found your tribe? Because we're all talking about it all day. Where will we find the people that are going to be our peer networks, our accountability buddies, all that kind of stuff?
Well,
or have you found?
I'd bring it back to like, what do you need? Mm-hmm. So I suppose to make it relatable, so I needed investors with Talivest, and I wanted very specific investors because I knew where I needed help with. So Anne Herity made sense for me because she was running a HR company and they ended up being a customer. I just liked her background. Who was another female investor? A woman called Susan Spence, who was a CTO of a really brilliant company over in the UK. I needed someone who could come in and advise me on how to build out your technology. We had a guy called Charlie Songhurst, who is an investor in all the tech companies you could possibly think about. I wanted him to introduce me to funds over in North America. So I suppose that's how I look at building my tribe. Is like, what gaps do I need filled? So at the moment, again, I love the market that I'm in because I haven't a notion of it. And it's great because I can ask like the stupidest questions and the most basic of things. But again, I just reached out to this guy who was the head of Muller Yogurts and used to be the head of Cadbury over in the UK, a great guy. Met him, again, happened to be in London, and was like, I don't know X, Y, or Z about retail. I don't know this about how do you fund a production, that's whatever. And he's now part of my tribe. So I'm now looking at kind of the next few spaces, like who else is missing? And don't underestimate just reaching out on a human. Like the stories I have over the years, it's actually cringy. But like I've sent letters, I have sent like Irish gifts. Like it's phenomenal what you think these people don't read emails, they do. And it's just putting yourself out there and just know that look, it's not the easy thing to do, but you have to do it.
I think you're just a breath of fresh air. I love that.
Yeah, an old-fashioned letter goes a long way. I had
It's
a VC
unbelievable.
tell me that he got an old-fashioned letter from a founder that they had said no to 3 times through the analysts, and it had always got to a certain point. It had never made it to his desk, and he got a handwritten letter from her actually, just going, "These are the reasons why you need to consider it." And he took her in for a meeting, and they ended up putting in 1.9 million.
Yeah, we met at this guy called Charlie Songhurst, and again, his LinkedIn profile photo isn't even him. Like he's this kind of like he's on the Meta board now and everything. He's incredible. And I remember reached out to him, and he was and this was before AI, thank God, because I'm so dependent now on like writing my emails for me, because again, my grammar's all over the place. But I remember just being like, "Hi Charlie, I'm Jayne. I'd love to tell you about my business, whatever." Something so basic. And he was like, "Okay, if you're in San Francisco at this day, at this time, I'll meet you." So I was like, "Oh, fuck it." I was like, "Okay, happen to be there, hop on a plane." So meet him in San Francisco, and again, like the Irish person being like, so let me tell you, whatever. And he was like, here's why I'm not going to invest. These are the reasons. And I was like, okay, fine, grand. Kind of licking my wounds a little bit. And I was like, okay, I'm going to go back and I'm going to fix the reasons, like why he said no.
Yeah.
So next thing I was like, hi Charlie, how are you? I was like,
I'm back.
Yeah, I was like, so really interesting actually, like a customer actually agreed as well that we need to improve this. So we've done this, like would love to meet you again. He's like, okay, I'm going to be in New York. Can you be there? And I'm like, fuck it. I was like, okay, happened to be there. No, I wasn't. Hop on a plane, meet him in New York. He was like, yeah, you're making improvements. It's still going to be a no. And at this stage, I was like, I'm determined. I was like, this is just, we're changing. So I was like, fine, another couple of months go by. And I was like, okay, we're going to make these changes then. Email again, like, Charlie, how are you? How's everything going? I read you invested in this or whatever. Again, doing the research on them as well is really good. And he's like, I'm actually in London if you're there. I'm like, okay, that's doable. So the third time anyway, he said yes. And he ended up being...
I think he was afraid of you, Jane. You needed...
I think at this stage she was like, go away. But it was like, he was almost laughing at the end of it, because I think regardless of the business I was running, I always think founders have to remember at seed and kind of almost Series A a little bit, so much of the decision is based on you and your resilience and the determination, because anybody can have a great idea, but it's like, how are they going to execute it? So I think the fact that he was like, either she's not going to leave me alone, or secondly, like the fact that, okay, she's saying, she's taking the feedback. And again, I say that to so many founders. I'm like, you're going to get 80% no's. It doesn't matter. Like Airbnb, we had the founder in Techstars when I was there, and he said like the amount of doors that were like closed. Yeah. And it's just remembering this. Every business goes through this. But then Charlie ended up introducing us to this guy called Nicholas Bergouin. And he's, again, absolutely incredible. I had no business meeting him, but Charlie had said, if I introduce you to this guy, if he says he wants to meet you, you meet him tomorrow. So again, same thing happened. I'm going to be in LA. So I had to fucking trudge all the way over. But we got the investment, which was the most important thing. And we got the way I did it with Nicholas, which I think is really good actually for media investors. We could have actually probably done a phone call and I would have been fine. But I took it upon myself to say, this is really personal. And the outlook I would have about an investor, it doesn't matter how much money they have or how successful they are, you're still putting their money into your pocket. It's really personal. And I wanted him to know that I was like, I want to meet you in person, that this is me, this is you. Yep. And I really appreciate you putting your trust in me. Yep. So I just think that's a really important lesson for me anyway, for this round. When I'm doing the funding, it'll be the exact same.
Yeah, I always say people buy from people and people invest in people. You know, relationships matter and they count. Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, Leonie, go.
I would say that Jayne walks the walk, that she talks, because one of her team reached out to me a couple of months ago and didn't know our connection. So our Paddy and my brother went to school together, and she was like, "Love your product. Can you give us," or like they bought first off my product, put in there as a gift to their customer for their subscription. So they got to sample mine. So it was like that partnership, strategic partnership or whatever.
Yep.
I didn't ask them to do it. It was, it was totally just because, they aligned or whatever and their customer, and also their raspberry and white chocolate.
I know, I should have actually, I just realized they brought no product. So I'll pop some over tomorrow so everybody can enjoy it.
Oh, that would be lovely.
That would have been great. Sorry guys, I actually have really bad baby brain at the moment.
Mary?
Yeah, so just, for everybody, it's a mixture of intuition and data, right, and making decisions. But when you're in a really difficult situation, does anything ever come out tops? Where would you rate them? So does the intuition ever come up above the data as a key driver?
God, and I don't know, can anybody relate? The amount of times that I'm like, I should have listened to my gut. I actually feel we all know the answer to things. And even when you're like, no, I'm going to go with this decision, you always, for me anyway, I will always come back to, I should have just listened to my gut. And I really, really think we can overcomplicate it. And like, I have to stop myself even with, like, I feel like Claude has become like my better half or something. I'm like, I better just Claude it. I'm just going to Claude. I'm just going to double check. And I'm like, no, like sit down with yourself first and be like, okay, why am I going to do this first? I just think your gut, I really do. If something doesn't feel right, there's a reason. Like I know that's a really simplistic way to do it. But then again, you can put the analytical frame on it. So again, on Friday, my team don't know it, but like I'm going to be going in really heavy hitting with an analytics dashboard to kind of say like, we have spent X amount of time doing events. Have they been worthwhile? Because again, that's what I love about having AI. AI is a huge part of our business. And because again, I'm really time sensitive, I want to know exactly where the outputs and the inputs are. So I want to know, like, is this being productive here? Should we actually maybe go to Upwork and get somebody to do this because it's taking me 3 hours, but actually could take somebody to do 1 hour of this? So I think there's a balance, but I think when it comes to big decisions, particularly with investors, team members as well is a big one, like, gosh, for me anyway.
Yeah.
Can I
Go-
say
go.
one?
Of course you can, Pauline.
Thank you. I was just really interested in your co-founder situation because I have a co-founder. We worked together previously, and then we became very good friends, and we both have 3 kids each, so we've got a lot in common, and I would consider her one of my best friends now. I get a lot of people saying, like, you're going to fall out with your co-founder, there's going to be a disaster, you know, it's like this expectation that something bad's going to happen. A lot of that advice comes from men, so I don't take it too seriously. We have a co-founders agreement, but do you have any advice about protecting that relationship?
Do you mind me asking, do you have positions?
Yes, very clear.
Okay, great, really, really good. Because I recently just advised a female company on this, that there was 3 founders and nobody had positions, and it was a disaster, like total disaster. Co-founder relationships are hard. I've gone through 3 in Tallyvest. It was really, really hard. 2 of them for the same reason that it wasn't for them. They wanted an exit. They wanted that nice thing, but I was like, lads, we're far away from that. And that's really important. You have to have. It's great that you have an agreement. My third one, Laura, again, when the company got acquired, it was just a natural thing. She went into one position and to go one, I went into the other. I'm very lucky with Sarah. We weren't friends before. We knew each other from me being a customer, but we had to have a really awful, difficult conversation at the beginning to make sure that expectations were managed. So I've heard of this happening with male and female males. If expectations aren't managed at the beginning, so for instance, I'm saying to Sarah, I want this to be big. I want to go global. And if Sarah's saying, well, I just want this to be a nice Irish business, there's nothing wrong with either or, but if they're not aligned, you're going in all different directions. We had to have the conversation of what happens if I want to leave, what happens if you want to leave, what happens if you change your mind in 2 years, and it's really bad. So, well, that's great that you've had that. But it is hard. I haven't done it, so I don't know, but I can imagine that it's hard when you're that close to your co-founder because expect that there's going to be disagreements. But what I've heard, what does work here with the industry recently, Howard Schultz from the former CEO of Starbucks, and he used to do this thing with his, there was 2 directors that were basically like the founders. Every Thursday they'd have a dinner where they would like leave it all out. That would be their venting time to say, okay, you really pissed me off this week because, or find a way to vent. But then when you leave, it's back to normal. So it just means things aren't being built up and pent up. And I thought that was a kind of a clever way in doing it. But decide, I suppose, is the friendship hat on here or is it co-founder hat on there? Because they're both very, very different.
And I think co-founding agreements, folks, if they're in agreement in the legalized term, great. But actually it's the hard conversations that you need to have. You know, what does maternity leave look like? What does caring responsibilities look like? What happens if one of you passes away? Like hard conversations. The legal co-founding agreement is one thing, but that kind of, I suppose, honest, you know, reality of, you know.
And it's not easy.
It's not easy.
But then once you've had a conversation, it's been had then.
You almost need to go through like all the different scenarios.
Yeah. Yeah.
But even down to investment. So again, if you're lucky to raise investment, it's kind of the conversation to say, look, this means that there has to be an out somewhere, and that's either we buy back the investor or we have an exit or whatever that looks and feels like. But if you're not aligned, like if you're sitting in front of an investor, like they're also going to sense it too. They're going to say, like, do you guys even know what you want here?
Vicky?
Sorry, just want to say I'm kind of like blown away here. You know, it took a lot to get us back down for 20 minutes. Okay. Not expecting much, you know. I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah.
I did just Google you there and I looked at like your list of A-list investors. Oh my God. Like, look, I know the likes of Susan Spence and Anne Going for Growth and all the rest, like they're top class and some of the others are amazing. But I think what you've kind of like shared with us is that you have to be relentless and you have to not mind the cringe and be like comfortably uncomfortable, and that's what it takes. And I'm gonna go, oh, I emailed them twice, I'm not going to email them again, send them another, unless, just go again and wear them down your knee.
It's literally like what really, really helps me when you're feeling kind of down is just like, okay, read other founder stories. Like literally put that into ChatGPT. Like I need like a lift up. Tell me stories of founders who've gone through this. And like that's kind of like everybody. Once you can normalize it yourself, you're like, okay, it's not just me. And like again, think big. Like I cannot like stress that enough, because like you attract customers, you attract investors. You're like fake it till you make it. Like that's the only way I can possibly say it. And again, like for me to sit in front of this guy Nicholas and Charlie and all these, like yeah, they're wonderful, they're great, but like I'm still saying like I'm giving you an opportunity because I'm going to make you money.
And were most of them like cold outreach, or did you
All
get
of them.
say a couple and then they introduced you to somebody else? Or
Yes and no. So I had like 2 or 3, and then like so they'd introduce. So the biggest one was probably Charlie. He introduced me to Luxor Capital and to Nicholas Bergouin. But then what I used to do is that I had other folks like Liam Casey, a guy called Brian Meehan who had sold Blue Bottle Coffee at the time for like 300 million or something ridiculous. I would just take advantage of them. So I would just say, Brian actually mentioned your name. He didn't. Like, they're never going to check, or like, God, I was over in dinner there and Anne's like, I wasn't. And she had mentioned, it's like, you had just be creative about it. Like, it's always, It's only
Jayne, I'm going to
it.
ask you one more question, parting words before we move on with the rest of the evening. What's the one piece of advice that you wish you knew before you started, and the one piece of advice you'd leave the girls with tonight?
Oh God, the one piece of advice I wish I knew. Get customers first. It doesn't matter how, if it's a case of saying I took fucking 30 customers out for coffee and they told me I would buy your product, this is why. It means I can sit in front of another actual customer or an investor to say, this is my customer. They haven't bought yet, but I know they're going to buy because I've met them. This is what they want. It's better than saying like the market says this. Like get real life data in whatever way you can. And advice to give to the room: think big. Honestly, just like leave it all out there. Like guys, life goes so fast, and like think about the story you want to say about yourself to yourself. Like actually do that exercise. It's really fun to say, God, when I started this 5 years ago, how did I know? I exited for 500 million to this person, and here's how I work backwards. People are going to knock you down. It's just part of it. Expect it, use it, because sadly, that's the way the reality is of this. And if you don't think big and if you don't be confident, like nobody's going to do that for you. So that's, I suppose, the only parting word.
Can we have a round of applause?